Hi, I'm Sally Kirkman from sallykirkman.com, and I'm here today with my friend, fellow astrologer, Christina Rodenbeck from oxfordastrologer.com. And together we are Astrology Talk podcast, and we're here again this month to talk to you about Aquarius season and the astrology that's coming up in the month ahead. But first, we're going to take a little look at what's been going on, which is retrodiction, looking back at the astrology that's been in the past month and how that's played out. And of course, we've had Mercury Retrograde. So how's it been for you, Christina? How are you and how have things been?
I'm very well, actually. I really found Christmas very calm and, it felt like a kind of quite a restful period. And then since the beginning of January, it's all been go, but in a fairly smooth way. A few technology problems. My friend had a really weird Mercury retrograde thing, which was that her email basically got cancelled, an email that she's had since the late 90s. This is Virgin. And apparently they have a rolling program of canceling this stuff. They just, forgot to tell her. But that's just, it's so major to lose all of your email for decades of, as she put it, broken love affairs, job, work that whatever, colleagues, even people who die, all of that is on the email. If you're like some of us and do vertical filing, in other words, that your email is your file. So I thought that was an incredible kind of Mercury retrograde. I mean, it goes across her first house and second house. But a Mercury retrograde at this end stage of Pluto and Capricorn as well. So Mercury, has gone out of Capricorn, it's coming back in. This retrograde has gone between Sagittarius and Capricorn. And we're at this very end stage of the last 15 years, and things are being swept up, tidied up. And I can feel that already. I'm also really feeling the pull of the next big astrology coming already, which is obviously the Pluto's ingress into Aquarius. But we mustn't be previous. We mustn't get there yet. So retrodiction, basically everything going along fine, trying not to look too much at the terrible news because it's so catastrophic, and trying not to get too anxious about the year ahead because I think actually there's a lot of really good astrology coming up. I feel really positive about the year ahead, although it's dangerous tides as well.
Agreed, really. A big year, and we've got some of the big astrology happening. Just to kind of say what my Mercury retrograde was about. I got a really bad cold, actually, which did change things. It lasted in fact, it's only just going. I'm just noticing that it's just going. So it's been the whole time that Mercury was retrograde. And that did change things. It changed my schedule. It meant that I had to cancel a lot of stuff. I had to hibernate, more than usual. So that was very classic. And there was one day, I think, which wasn't long after Mercury turned retrograde, and I was on the road. I had a cold. I went out. I had a flat tire in my car. Everything got pushed back time-wise. So there was this sense of, that usual kind of, okay, things need to change. I need to be flexible. But I being an astrologer, there's a bit of me that, it's just, okay, here we go. Here's Mercury retrograde. I get less irritable, because I find it quite amusing, if that makes sense. Well, it fits. It was going to be not as I planned. I was going to have to sort of change and whatever. So, again, it helps having the astrologer's eyes on things, doesn't it? You feel kind of like you're more in tune and in flow with life, which I love. I love that.
Yeah, just being flexible. That's what Mercury retrograde demands, isn't it? I have to say that mutable signs probably find it a lot easier than fixed signs. And mutable signs are, Pisces, Gemini, Virgo, maybe Virgo not so much. Sagittarius, we go with the flow, I had a lot of old, over the Christmas period, my sister came, Someone that, another friend came to stay. So we had quite a full house, which was incredibly pleasant. And it felt like a very traditional Christmas, which was kind of what I was expecting, again, as an astrologer, because of all the Mercury retrograde and everything. And it was just delightful. We played charades.
Oh, my Lord, lovely.
I know. My daughter had to do Roget's Thesaurus, and she did Tyrannosaurus, and my other daughter guessed it. So she did the entire destruction of the dinosaurs with the comet hitting the Earth, and wandered around with her little hands in front like a T-Rex. So that was pretty good.
Oh, sweet. That's too cute. Yeah, we did have a big family time as well. We had a family time. And I think, there's also, I like it when you get the full moon in Cancer, the family sign, which often falls around Christmas. It was just a couple of days later, wasn't it? So, yeah, it was very family oriented. And we played a lot of games as well. I think it's the best way if you can, So nice. And then I was just with my daughter and chilling out as well. But I agree with you what you were saying about the start of the year. That has, we were saying this as astrologers. Mercury turned direct on the 2nd. Mars entered Capricorn on the 4th. And there was this go, go, go feel. And I think that's still very evident in the astrology. There's this forward pull, isn't there? So, as we move into Aquarius season, it does feel as if there's definitive endings, particularly with that Sun-Pluto conjunction in Capricorn, 29 degrees Capricorn on January the 20th, just before sneaking into Aquarius. But there's still things are kind of powering up, steaming forward. So we're moving into Aquarius season. Shall we talk a little bit about Aquarius, the star sign?
Yeah, it's the 11th sign of the zodiac. And it's represented by a person, or depending on what symbol you're using, it's the water bearer. It's not a water sign, obviously. It's an air sign. And I always I think it's a fascinating sign. It's incredibly complex. It's one of these signs that people like to sort of package off and sort of simplify. And actually, it's a complex sign. So, I think of it as Aquarius, both the carrier of water in the Latin sense, but also the Aquarius, the person who designs the actual aqueducts. So it's both an architect and the most humble person as well. And that already makes it complex. And of course it's complex because it's got two rulers. It's got the ruler Uranus is the modern ruler, and Saturn is the traditional ruler of Aquarius.
Yeah, which are opposites, aren't they, really? They couldn't be more different, Saturn and Uranus. Saturn is very much tradition, kind of convention, steadiness, and Uranus is this erratic, unpredictable, innovative energy. I always think of Saturn with its, having its roots in the past, and Uranus is looking to the future, wants to move forward. So I think with some Aquarians, there can be this pull between the two. At its best, when you've got these opposites, then you want to bring them together to complement them, and you can have the kind of the hippie new age type of Aquarius, but you also have the type who's good with systems and organization. And how can you bring those together in a way, those two different energies? So yeah, but just such different planetary archetypes, aren't they, Saturn and Uranus?
Yeah, actually, I think they have a lot of crossover. They're science-y, and they're both, but they're just science-y in different ways. Saturn is the scientific method in a way, if you wanted to be reductive about it. In other words, the method of, testing things, trying things out, and testing them in a lab. And Uranus is the sort of bolt of lightning inspiration. But they work together really well, I think, if you're willing to have both. And one of the problems for a lot of Aquarians is getting stuck in the Saturn, which, in other words, getting stuck in that having very fixed ideas, because this is a fixed air sign. And and one of the kind of astrologers' sort of sayings about Aquarius is that they're avant-garde when they're young, and then when they're old, they're out of date, if you see what I mean.
Not really.
Well, quite often Aquarians seem to be very avant-garde when they're young. They're like ahead of the
Yes.
times.
Yes.
And then the times catch up with them and the times overtake them.
Okay. Interesting.
And that's what I mean about having these very avant-garde ideas, these very forward-thinking ideas in their youth and middle age, and then getting kind of fixed with them and stuck with them. And that's to do with being a fixed sign. I'm not saying all Aquarians do that, but I'm suggesting that is an Aquarian issue.
Yeah, interesting. I had a group of friends when I was younger. We always used to hang out together. There were so many Aquarians in that group. I mean, really quite interesting. A whole crowd of them. And I think the thing I noticed, this was like 30 years ago, is that some of them, there's a usefulness about them. I think, they, even as they've got older, they're still kind of actually looking young and they're still acting young. And I'm thinking in particular of the ones who, haven't settled down into sort of conventional life. They've not got married, had kids, got proper jobs sort of things. And in particular, there's a few who I'm thinking of who are still dating kind of in their 60s and 70s, actually, like they were when they were 20. So they've not changed in that way.
That's kind of what I'm trying to say, is that you're ahead when you're young, but then the times catch up with you. And it could be like, oh, well, wait a second, you forgot to grow up. And it's not quite the Peter Pan thing that you get with Gemini. Although I think they do have that quality quite often of staying forever, looking really young. And having that kind of airy, youthful sprightliness. But I think that there's a good side and a bad side to it. So it can be frustrating for their friends or their partners. Please just, grow up a little bit. And it can also feel like hanging on to youth when actually you should be moving into the next stage.
Yeah, agreed. And the other thing I really always about my Aquarian friends is, because being a Scorpio, I love doing one-to-ones, and my moon Libra loves one-to-ones. They'd always arrange to meet up, but they still do this now. They arrange to meet up. You think, oh, great, we're going to have a good catch-up. Haven't seen them for ages. And then before you know it, they've brought all these other people in, and it's a group. And it's like, who are these people? They're all new. I don't know them. And that, again, it makes me laugh because it's such an Aquarian thing to do. They much prefer the group bringing people together, getting new people involved. And that's still going on now when I meet up with them.
It's a really friendly sign, actually,
Yeah.
although, again, also good at being alone. And that's one of the weird things about Aquarians, is that we think of them as like this group sign, but actually they're also quite often people who are quite happy in their own company. There's a kind of weird contrast there. It's an amazingly complex sign. I'm watching the morning show on television at the moment, which is a series starring Jennifer Aniston, who is, of course, or Aquarian in some way. She's obviously got Libra rising. That's hence the great beauty but she's got that youthful zinginess. She's incredibly popular, which is, again, an Aquarian quality. Having a bit of Aquarius in your chart is jolly useful if you want to do something like, say, run for president, or, if you want to do politics. It's a very political sign, because it's about the connections between people, right? That's what Aquarius is about these structures. And Jennifer Aniston has been, on the front covers of magazines for the last 30 years, She's also an incredibly talented actress. So I'm very enjoying the morning show, which is like it must have been written for her, because she plays a TV anchor, which, again, that's quite an Aquarian profession. Why? Because it's the anchor. It's that fixed thing. It's the anchor but broadcasting is to do with the air. Right? So those little ziggly lines that you see that symbolize Aquarius are about things flying through the air, whether that's electricity or words. And she's amazingly good at it. It's like she's a very versatile actress anyway, with incredible comic timing, of course.
And she became known for her role in Friends, didn't she? Which you couldn't think of a more Aquarian title for a TV show. I mean, that's, it's their friends, it's the group, which seems to fit as well, doesn't it, for her? Yeah, she is a great actress. The Aquarian I was thinking of, and I know you know her, is Olga Tokarczuk. I think that's how you pronounce her name, and I'm sorry if it's not. Who's a brilliant author and wrote a book called Drive Your Plough Over the Bones of the Dead. And if anyone's not read that, do read it, because it's full of astrology as well. It's a thriller. It's really brilliant. And she is, she uses astrology within it, which is fantastic. And I suppose also because Aquarius is often one of the signs that we think of, when you're looking for the astrologer in a chart, what gives the signature of a chart. I mean, Aquarius is one of the star signs, isn't it, that, is often associated with astrology because it's alternative. It's kind of new age. I mean, do you think of Aquarius as that?
Yeah, and I don't think it's because it's alternative and new age. I think it's because it's a methodology.
Both.
It's both. Exactly. It's Uranian, right? So it's kind of new age. You have to make a choice as an astrologer not to be conventional, because you're going to get a lot of people, if you're an astrologer, sneering at you and saying that you're some kind of crazy person to believe in this nonsense. I was about to say crap, but I'm not sure that we can say that on this podcast. Anyway.
Well, you've said it now. Too late.
I've said it now. I know. I've said it. But if you're going to do astrology, you have to be able to be Uranian, which is rebellious, right? But on the other hand, you also have to be Saturnian, because you have to be methodical. You have to understand the math behind astrology. You have to understand you have to be step by step with it. You have to, and you also, and this is very Aquarian. So I do agree. I think Aquarius is an astrologer's sign for sure. I have Venus in Aquarius, and I think one of the reasons I always think I love astrology. That's what that means. I love astrology. Venus in Aquarius. But you have to be able to synthesize, and that is an Aquarian thing. And that's kind of why I suppose what we're trying to talking around with Aquarius is synthesizing these very different things. These very different energies, the Uranus-Saturn energy, getting that to synthesize is quite tricky. It's a difficult thing, but when you do it, you get magic. And I think that there's a wizard quality to Aquarians when they get everything going, integrating. And of course, like all normal people, you go through phases of having everything working together beautifully, and it's all integrated, and your whole character, everything's great. And then it falls apart, and then it comes back together, and it falls apart. So there's a kind of rhythm to everybody's life. But Aquarians are wizards, and that is also what astrologers are. You're a wizard when you're doing this, if you can get the synthesis going. And it's about synthesizing the whole chart. And that's why we associate Aquarius with astrology.
It's very right brain, left brain, isn't it? You need to have both. There's a craft in astrology, but then once you've learnt the craft, then you need to be able to make those intuitive moves. And I think when just you were talking about Venus in Aquarius, which is your career planet, isn't it? My career planet is Saturn in Aquarius. So, straight away, we both have that ability of Aquarius to do that. So we're moving into this very, it is a very Aquarius season, isn't it, coming up? It's interesting. I mean, Sun's moving into Aquarius and Pluto moves back into Aquarius the day after. So it's the 20th, 21st that you get both the Sun and Pluto moving into Aquarius. So we are getting very Aquarian, although, as you kind of touched on, we've also got a lot of the inner planets still in Capricorn, haven't we? Mercury and Mars are both there as we move into Aquarius season. And we've also got Venus moving into Capricorn as well. So it's, even though we're moving forward, even though there's this forward motion, and let's go into Aquarius season, it's kind of like getting back out into the world in some way after Capricorn season, which is hibernation inner. It's like, and I can feel that too, wanting, there's so much going on where I live and wanting to to get involved socially and get to go into different groups and look at what next on that side of life. There's still this kind of process of finishing something off in Capricorn. That's a theme also of this month coming up.
Yes, I'm just getting out the full moon chart for the 25th of Jan. I have to say, I mean, okay, let's just jump right in there and talk about Pluto in Aquarius. I know that everybody's been talking about this. You're probably sick to the back teeth of hearing about Pluto in Aquarius, but it's huge. And you've probably been feeling the pull of this for a while now, right? Listeners, you probably have been feeling the pull of Pluto going into Aquarius and leaving a lot of Capricorn junk behind. I was just noticing that this Epstein thing has come up again, which is it's so Pluto in Capricorn, the whole Epstein scandal. It pulls in Me Too, abuse of power. It's an abuse of power, right? And that is one of the themes of Pluto in Capricorn, is abuse of power and challenges to the abuse of power also. And we've got this last surge of this sort of disgusting Epstein. It's like sewage, isn't it? Spreading across your newspaper. These people who are just garbage, treating other people as if they're disposable. So these people are going to be left behind. It's like flotsam and jetsam on the tide, because the tide is now moving into Aquarius and other stuff is happening. And I have to say, one of the things that I really note also about this move of Pluto into Aquarius is two things about the coming year. One is that this is the biggest, I think I mentioned this on the last podcast, this is the biggest year for elections ever on the planet. So millions and millions and millions of people, if not billions, are going to the polls, and that is incredible. And at the same time, we're all worried that our democracies are in jeopardy. And that, again, is rather Aquarian. We've got these two opposite things, but they're both about how we govern and how we're equal and how we're fair and how the structures work, right? And so they're both under threat and empowered. And that is a Plutonic feeling, that feeling of, and not, so we talk about Pluto as a planet of transformation, which it truly is, but it's also more, that's how it works. It works by completely destroying and then rebuilding quite often, but also by challenging us and showing us the shadow, right? Showing us the shadow of democracy. This is kind of what we're seeing at the moment. And I think there are various places in the world where we're really, really seeing this powerfully. And that's going to be a theme of the coming year and the coming 20 years, just to make you feel more relaxed about it. Because it's not just, it's happening in 2024 and that's it. No, this is a process.
Yeah. I mean, Pluto, it's I often find you learn more about the planets when you're working with clients, obviously. And for me, with Pluto, there is this, when you've got Pluto strong in your chart, very often, there can be themes of power and control going on. And quite often, you get people who find that they're sort of the victims of power, the victims of domination when Pluto's strong. However, there's this thing with Pluto that it's kind of calling you to be empowered. It's calling you to step into your power. So you're the one who harnesses that power. And I think that's a really important way to think about Pluto as well, more on a personal level, I suppose, moving forward. It's about how you can empower yourself, isn't it? And how you can sort of embody the archetype of Pluto. And I think that's really important for people who've got planets in early degrees Aquarius coming up, because you're going to have Pluto on those planets or those points.
Yeah, no, I was going to say this kid who's a darts player here, who's 16, who's just not quite won. He nearly won the whole world championship, right? So he would have been the youngest ever. He is the youngest ever to get that far, I think. Anyway, I think his sun is either at 1 or at 0 of Aquarius. So he already is feeling that. And it's interesting, actually, fun, watching back to Jennifer Aniston, she's playing this incredibly powerful role. So it'll be interesting watching what happens to Aquarians who are in the news also, and seeing how this takes them. But I agree, Pluto is both empowering and disempowering. It's an extraordinary thing. We like to think things are all one way, but actually, I think if you are let yourself feel that Pluto power, and it's not whether it's bad or good, it's how you wield it that's bad or good, as the human being with the Pluto behind you, because you haven't really got control of it. It's like you're on a tide and you have to go with something, but it's how you go with it that's important. So a lot of people are going to be feeling this right away. These Aquarians are going to be feeling it right away, because you get the Sun and Pluto coming in together right in this early, at the end of January. And so you'll get a taste of what this is going to be like. And, there will be things like people may offer you a lot of money. I mean, for example, this darts kid, he's going to be offered a lot of money.
He is.
He is. And that's a Plutonic as well. Big ton of money, or big ton of power, or a big gun. You're going to be offered that. And it's what you do with it that's the important thing.
Yeah, because it's the underworld, isn't it, too? There's this being, literally Pluto, god of the underworld. And Plutonic themes are often, there can be the lure of money and power through corruption, through, treading in the underworld. So yeah, and I think that's a kind of little bit of theme that runs throughout the outer planets. It's how you use them, actually, and how you wield them. So, I mean, this, the full moon that's coming up on the 25th of Jan is interesting. I mean, the sun is at 5 Aquarius by then, and Pluto at 0 Aquarius. So they are conjunct, but the sun's moving away. But we're still going to be feeling the power of that Pluto on this full moon, definitely. So it's perhaps going to be an interesting full moon for Scorpios as well. Pluto being your ruling planet. It's in Aquarius. It's in the 4th house. So it is this theme of, it's about your past, your legacy. There may be power games going on within your family, actually, or there may be sort of end of a chapter, end of a significant chapter, when it's the point right at the base of your horoscope. So I think this full moon is going to kind of shine a spotlight on things, particularly for Scorpios. At this full moon.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that all the fixed signs, it's going to be important. I have to say, I think it's pretty important for Leo. You're the moon at this point, Leo. It's your moon. And I think that one thing I would say to Leos is that you're not the one with the power at this full moon, but you may be feeling very emotional. And you also may feel slightly under attack. You might notice that your partner is becoming more powerful, or they have stepped into a new role, or they've stepped into his shoes, and you suddenly actually can feel that in your waters. You feel that emotionally. And that could be really great, actually, if your partner becomes more powerful, more the person they're supposed to be, more authentic. Because I think one of the things about Pluto is authenticity. It's about burning away all the stuff that's not real. And telling the truth, because it's a truth-telling planet. And, one thing that may happen for Leos, for example, at this one, is someone may tell you a hard truth, but that's actually very, very useful. The other sign that this full moon is really important for is Taurus. And, of course, Taurus has been having a hell of a ride in the last 6 months, up, down, expansive, contracting. It's been a really amazing time for Taurians, and this full moon makes an exact, square to Jupiter in Taurus. So it's really kind of pinging that Jupiter that has already been had an incredible effect on Taurians, and you may find yourself in a position, I would say, for Taurus, of being a judge, of having to choose. Of having to make a choice, maybe between your family and your career, or something really important. You may be finding that you really weigh up two opposite two different paths. It's like the Lover's card in tarot.
I'm interested in actually what you were saying about Pluto, about the truth-telling side of Pluto. Because for me, I mean, Jupiter is the planet of truth. And Pluto, I know, you know, also being a Scorpio, there's a side of Pluto that is very secretive and wants to keep cards close to the chest and can be, you know, can have a really manipulative side. You know, there's a strategizing, I think, that goes on with Pluto. So I'm not sure if it's truth-telling.
I have to say, secretive is not the same as lying. So you may not tell all the truth, right? But you're good at, you know, chesting your cards, basically. Of course, that's a famous Scorpio thing, isn't it? Is being able to hold a secret. But I also think that it's a planet that demands the truth. And I find, for example, with clients, if they have Pluto rising, which I quite surprisingly often get, people with Pluto rising, I often find that they're the kind of people who will blurt out the truth that is ugly, right? They have learned how to not do that since childhood, not to be the person who kind of spots the difficult thing. And when you're a child, you might say this out loud, right? But as an adult, you probably have learned to conceal that ability. And I also think that there is a penetrating quality about Pluto that penetrates into what's really underneath things, which is also about the truth. So, this may not be something that you recognize with Pluto, but I would say that Pluto people come into a room and they will see the undercurrents of what's happening between people in a psychological way that may be quite uncomfortable and that they may have learned not to express out loud, but they are seeing those threads between people. I have got a first house Pluto, so I'm sort of, that's, I think that Pluto is about, I do think that there's a lot of truth to Pluto, which makes people uncomfortable.
I think it's the word truth doesn't fit easily with me, I have to say. I mean, it's good that we're discussing this because we're going into Pluto season. For me, integrity, I like the word integrity. And I think for me, Pluto is about excavating. It will excavate the truth and bring things to the surface. But I still think it has a sneaky quality to it.
Yeah, there's a manipulative quality to it. And that's also because they're seeing the real situation much more clearly than other people quite often, really Pluto people. So they're seeing the psychological connections between people, which means that they can be very manipulative, which is actually the true situation, right? One of the problems is always seeing the dark side if you're a very Plutonic person. So you're always thinking that other people are just as manipulative as you, or just as it's like you have X-ray vision. You're seeing the bones of things, and not everybody is seeing that. Some of us are seeing like the surface prettiness, and that's also a completely valid way of seeing the world. So I think, it's X-ray specs, I would say, Pluto. And one of the interesting things about this full moon, back to the full moon, is that it's the full moon in Leo, right? So what is Leo ruled by? Leo is ruled by the sun. So it's a very important, it's a moment when Leo may feel very powerless in a way, because their sun is in the opposite sign. It's in Aquarius, and it's overcome by Pluto. So I would suggest that Leos particularly pay attention to this full moon, and you might feel disempowered around it. And that could literally be your health.
It's interesting because also at this full moon, Pluto, like you say, it is the dark, isn't it? It's the darkness. And again, as Scorpios, you can go into that dark negativity. And I think the best way, sometimes if you can't, as a Scorpio, feel you can't find the light yourself. So you need someone else to bring in the light. So at this full moon, we've got the sun shining next to Pluto and Jupiter. Jupiter is there making this connection. And I often think of, Jupiter, it rules Sagittarius, the sign after Scorpio. So from this sort of deep inner time moving through Scorpio, you go into Sagittarius season ruled by Jupiter, and you're out in the world. It's like you can see you've got expanse. It's not so kind of hidden and constrained. So this full moon, actually, even though Pluto's there, I see it as quite a celebratory full moon too. You know, the sun and moon at 5 degrees, moving to the square of Jupiter at 6 degrees. So they're kind of trying to get away from Pluto, and they're bringing things out into the light. For me, this full moon's very much about, you know, really looking for the bright side and celebrating what's good in life. It gives a real opportunity to do that. And I like that for the fire signs, Aries, Leo, Sagittarius, as it's a moon in fire, Leo. It's kind of, you know, being able to look at what's positive and go a bit over the top even with Jupiter square this full moon too.
Oh, gosh. We're disagreeing with each other today, aren't we, Sally? This is most unusual. We're really often on the same page.
That's okay.
I'm pretty cautious around this full moon. And by the way, I think the whole of the end week of January is really good after this full moon. But at the full moon itself, because there's lots of other stuff, there's all these amazing earthy trines going on, right? So it's really good it's different for different signs, right? So, for example, for Taurus, Venus is going to be making really nice aspects to Jupiter for the whole of this last week of January. And, and Mars and Mercury are making great aspects to Uranus and Taurus. So there's this fantastic earthy trine. So that's good for Virgo and Capricorn and Taurus in particular, but also for the water signs, because actually it hooks in with Saturn and Pisces really beautifully, that Jupiter. So it's all pinging around in this last week of sort of practical change. But I think the full moon itself, I find that square from Jupiter can be excessive. I think that so there's a danger of like excess. And I think that the Pluto Sun conjunction, it may be good for some people, like Aquarians. I don't see why that wouldn't possibly be quite empowering. But I think that for certain other signs that there's that you should be careful not to overdo it at this full moon.
Okay. Well, yeah, possibly. Or you go for it. I mean, there's, I like Jupiter even in square in an opposition. And it is actually, interestingly, it's currently pretty close opposite my sun in Scorpio. So maybe that's why I'm kind of, obviously it's what we've got going on in our own charts as well, isn't it? And for me, the Jupiter is calling out into the world. It's like, just go for it. Sometimes we need a little, catalyst to be a bit wild, a bit excitable. So, I mean, yeah, I think of this as a celebratory full moon, but that's okay. People can report back and let us know. How was it for you? What happened on this, full moon? And just to say, I do like the end of Jan as well, because there is, as you said, there's a lot of exciting stuff going on. And one thing I do want to mention is that, once Uranus turns direct on January the 27th, then all of the planets are in forward motion throughout February, throughout March, until Mercury turns retrograde again on April the 1st. So, like we mentioned about the start of this year, there's something kind of pulling forward that can't stop us. I kind of feel like that is going more and more in the first few months of this year.
So yes, I agree that there's a lot of really good stuff at the end of January, and that you're going to be compelled to push things forward. Basically, there's not really much choice about it. And to ride the earthy wave. So do the practical things that you can do, and to try not to get dragged into intellect, to sort of air arguments. Do the practical stuff and the emotional work, and where is the, I like the Saturn in Pisces, because it's still making a sextile to Jupiter, and it's making a sextile to Venus. For most of that, for that first week, that end January, beginning of February. And that suggests to me practical compassion It's also just for people who are interested in asteroids. Saturn and Hygeia are also working together. They're making conjunction in Pisces. So you may find that, for example, if you're a Pisces, that you're doing some really practical healing. You're making, I don't know, you're going and working for a charity, or something like that. That's actually really boots on the ground. And I think there's a lot of boots on the ground charity work that is going on. I follow the World Kitchen, who are that's a group it's an American charity that goes and cooks for people when there's a disaster. So they're in Japan at the moment, and in Gaza, and I think in Ukraine as well. And I can see that actual practical compassion that is actually helpful to people and not just talking. Really is really effective actually in the coming months, but you can see it around this full moon and this end of January period and into February. And I think that what's one of the things we're going to be called upon to do is to really work out what's useful.
Yeah, and that is, that's what the earth signs are so good at, aren't they? They're really good at getting things done. I mean, I find it, we've got this little trio of planets, Venus, Mercury, and Mars, all in Capricorn, and they'll all move on from Capricorn during this season. So Mercury moves on February the 5th, Mars leaves Capricorn February 13th, Venus leaves Capricorn February 16th. So, there is this kind of wrapping up theme as well going on in Capricorn. I mean, it's been such a powerful time. And that may be kind of, needing to sort of negotiate things, talk things through, sort things out wherever Capricorn falls in your chart. And probably very important for Capricorn yourself. I mean, it may be that you've got these long-term goals and you're getting other people working alongside you. So that's what I'm kind of thinking of, this gathering team around you. So, it's sort of this move between Capricorn, Aquarius. It's doing the practical stuff, but it's not doing it on your own. It's gathering a team around you.
Yeah, I agree about the teamwork.
Yeah, very much so with Aquarius, isn't it? I think also just to be aware that, there is this wrapping up going on in Capricorn. We are going to have Pluto back in Capricorn September 2nd to November 19th. It dips back into 29 Capricorn. But it's really important what you're putting in place now, I think, that can finalize matters or bring things to some kind of completion later in the year. So again, note where Capricorn falls, because that sign is still wanting to be important, actually. It's still wanting to be foreground as we move into Aquarius season. So it's kind of long-term goals and then getting your team. I loved what you said about the World Kitchen, those kind of charity, on-the-ground charities. It feels very kind of pertinent for now. We've got the new moon on February the 9th coming up, which is in Aquarius, and it's a lively one. There's this real sense of aliveness going on. I mean, the full moon, Jupiter and Uranus, we need to talk about them in a way because they're both active this month, very much so. And as Christina was saying a bit, because as things move through Capricorn, they're making trine aspects to both Jupiter in Taurus and Uranus in Taurus. And we are going to have this amazing Jupiter-Uranus conjunction on April the 21st in Taurus, which only happens once every 13 years. And I think we both agree it's really exciting. It's, when Jupiter and Uranus come together, there's themes of freedom and liberation. Those two planets together are often a symbol of the entrepreneur. So things can happen. There's like a big vision. Uranus brings that spontaneity. And it's kind of wherever that falls in your chart, there's this ability to take a risk or take a leap of faith. And even though the conjunction's coming in April, we're kind of feeling it this month as well with all these earthy trines taking place. And the lunations as well, actually, because Jupiter was square the full moon. And during the new moon in Aquarius on February the 9th, Uranus is square the sun and moon. So they're both very active, those two planets this month, aren't they, Christina?
They are. And, one of the things I want to sort of mention for the next, in February into this Aquarius season is that as each of those fast-moving planets moves into Aquarius, of course, they make the conjunction with Pluto. So they're like tidying up in Capricorn after Pluto's left, and then they're greeting Pluto at the threshold. And Pluto is guarding the threshold of Aquarius. And as each one of those planets greets him, I think it'll be interesting for the signs that are ruled by that planet. So, for example, there's the Mercury-Pluto conjunction. I haven't got the date for that.
I have. It's February the 5th. I've got the date. So that's when Mercury meets Pluto.
And that'll be interesting particularly for Gemini and Virgo. It's like you're meeting with Pluto as this new Pluto in his new outfit, in his silver, shiny Aquarian outfit with the dealy boppers on his head, feeling very different. And so just notice who you're talking to around that day. And then Mars will come in and meet Pluto as well. And that's Scorpio and Aries. What happens? What date is that, Sally?
Well, I'd just like to say that date is February the 14th. It's Valentine's, which isn't the most romantic little duo for Valentine's, is it?
No, but it could be really sexy.
Could be sexy.
Mars-Pluto conjunctions can be very sexy. But, again, sex and violence. That's Mars-Pluto, isn't it? Sex and violence.
Not so great, I think. Just be wary on that date, that Mars-Pluto. And don't arrange your romantic dates on February the 14th this year. Choose another date. There's got to be better dates than that one, personally.
I would say don't arrange them with a stranger in particular, or someone that then Venus goes into Aquarius. What's the date of that?
February 17th, the conjunction.
February 17th. And again, that's really important for Libra and Taurus. It's like, oh, okay, this is, now we're going to meet what this Pluto in Aquarius is, what this means. Obviously for Taurus, it's actually really important. It's on your kind of, the foundations of your life are going to be completely transforming over the next 20 years, but this is the beginning of it. Is that the foundations? No, it's the other way around.
No, it's career. It's career. It's the peak for Taurus. Scorpio, it's foundations.
Scorpio, it's foundations. But so for Taurus, it's really important. And Taurus, it's such an important year because you've got the Jupiter in your sign plus the Pluto going into your midheaven. So what does that mean? That means something about your status, about your career is transforming. And you might get a big opportunity, actually, as Venus makes that conjunction with Pluto. So don't forget that Pluto is empowering. And it can maybe giving a little bit of power to each of those planets as they go past.
Yeah, and I think it is, we were talking a bit about Pluto has such a bad press. And there is a destructive nature to Pluto, we know that. But like when it was going through Capricorn, we had the plutocrats. It turns people into billionaires too. It's all about power and money. So also when you've got Pluto, it is about empowering. It's about stepping into your power. It's about really it can give you steeliness. It can give you laser focus. So, it's with these powerful Pluto conjunctions, look at where they fall in your horoscope. And it may be that you've got someone in your life who's powerful, who's in a position of influence, who can kind of bring something into your life. Or it may be that you're the one who can be empowered, within an area of your life and step into your power and really get steely and focused. That's another good way of using Pluto, to kind of really use him and also not to give up as well. I think with Pluto, there is a sense that he can close the door on things, but he can really help you kind of hone your skills, keep things going. There can be this relentless nature about Scorpio. I know that when I need to get stuff done, get work done, I can just hone in on it and power through and complete it. And I think that's another aspect of Pluto. It can, it's not sort of wafty, sort of, shallow at all. It gives you that depth of focus honing in on things moving forward.
And it's interesting that that we're going to have the Mars-Pluto conjunction on the 14th of February. And later in the year, we're going to have a Mars-Pluto opposition. I do think this is very warlike. There is a negative side to it. I'm slightly anxious about that, but it has a definite warlike aspect to it, that Mars-Pluto conjunction at the beginning of Aquarius. Wow, what a month coming up. And so all of that movement, so if you think of the month as a movement from Capricorn into Aquarius, it's still ongoing, right? So at the beginning of this Aquarius season, we have the move of Pluto and the Sun, but we still have these other planets trailing behind. But by the end of this Aquarius season, pretty much most of the planets have moved into Aquarius, except for Ceres, of course, who is going to be in Capricorn for quite a long time this year. The asteroid Ceres, which is who is kind of, I would say, not exactly Pluto's nemesis, but definitely an asteroid that is, I think, equal to Pluto, and mythologically definitely equal to Pluto. She's one of the only, as Demeter, she's one of the only people who actually negotiates with Pluto and comes up with a deal. So there may be some big deal making, actually, to do with this end of Pluto and Capricorn, that stuff getting finished off. And I have been watching, for example, the sort of Trump things going on, because he is very much Pluto and Capricorn person. Although incredibly lucky in his astrology for the coming year.
Yeah, he's got, I mean, Jupiter, he's a Gemini, so Jupiter moves into Gemini, and he's got Taurus midheaven, so he's got the Jupiter-Uranus. So let's see what happens with him. He could luck his way out of things with that. We'll have to see. Just to go back to the new moon, because we kind of didn't talk a lot about this new moon on February the 9th. I mean, it is in a very close square to Uranus. The sun and moon are separating from it in Aquarius. So there's a very Aquarian energy at this new moon. It's the sort of beginnings that are like a bit mad and crazy, isn't it? Impulsive. It's like if there's something that, I don't know, you could just leap into things on this new moon. Whether that's a good thing to do depends what it is a little bit, I think. Because there's a fast pace to it. It's like, right, I've just had enough of something that's been holding me back. I'm going to break out and move forward. I mean, it could be relationship oriented for Leo. Well, the big fixed signs again. I mean, there's, we've got so much in fixed signs at the moment: Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius. And these full moons are really kind of triggering those fixed signs who don't like change. So maybe it needs this kind of catalyst of the new moon to leap into something new.
It is a catalyst, and I think catalyst is the word here, because it's Uranus, which is the catalyst planet, and it's making a very dynamic aspect to the new moon. And it's like, right, we're going to leave this stuff behind, and now we can go. And there's a sort of, I feel like there's quite a clear run from this new moon onwards. I would suggest, as a sort of general piece of advice, that people should be getting organized for a very active spring, an active season coming up, even before that. I mean, it's active from now, from January. So you need to stay organized, I suppose. So it's not like stay at home and get organized, but keep your organization pucka, because you're going to have a lot to do. And this applies to most people are going to be really busy. And it's about setting priorities and prioritizing the things that are important and just dropping those things that actually don't have to be done. So don't feel that you have to do everything under this. It's quite big picture stuff in a way. You don't have to deal with all the details. You just need to keep going, right? And actually, as you were saying earlier, which I really agree with, where's your team? Don't feel that you have to do everything yourself, right? The more people you can get involved with whatever projects you have, and that means either family, friends, team, teams at work, all of those things. The more people you can get involved, the better, the easier to be. So spread the burden. This is I would say, one of the significant things about this period, this coming period. I'm also just thinking about some of the other signs, because we've talked a lot about about the fixed signs, right? And also some of the earth signs. We've discussed how actually this is, especially before all the planets go into Aquarius, as the planets are going through Capricorn, this is really good for getting things smoothly taking off, right? It's like a really smooth takeoff into 2024. But I was just going to say, can I just say about sort of for Libra and Gemini, you're suddenly getting all of this very positive energy, Libra and Gemini, coming from Aquarius, coming smoothly at you. You know, how are you going to, you don't have to use it necessarily, but you'll find yourself propelled forward in a smooth way. I like it, you know, and especially for, you know, when Venus goes into Aquarius, I think this is really useful.
We're moving from, it's kind of benefiting the earth signs and then the air signs, isn't it, throughout this month? And I just want to, with this new moon as well, because I'm interested, I mean, at the new moon, Venus and Mars, the lovers, are still in Capricorn. And I'm really intrigued for Cancer, what this is about, this new moon, because, you know, the moons are so important. You're ruled by the moon. And I wonder whether this is kind of being able to break free from a partnership that's kind of felt a bit heavy or intense, that you've not been able to do that, whether personal, professional, financial, whatever. But it may be that it's a time when you are ready to kind of break out of that as we move out of Capricorn season and really into, you know, Aquarius season almost kind of takes over this month more towards the end of the month. And then we're really in it, and, you know.
Can I endorse that? I really agree about for Cancer rising, that you may have been in a sort of in some kind of enslavement, or so, that's a big word to use.
Yeah, it is.
But in a relationship where you had very little power, or no power, or nothing, and you're moving out of that, and this is the first new moon out of that, right? And you're just finishing some stuff off. I actually had a client the other day who, it wasn't a relationship with a person, it was with a company. And it's finishing. It's done, right? She's moving on. And this new moon is really going to be that's that, right? This is the first breath. It's like, and also one of the things about Capricorn, going from Capricorn into Aquarius, is like, Capricorn is all about climbing the mountain. Aquarius is about being on top of the mountain and breathing that fresh air. And it's like this blast of fresh air is coming in February, as each of us get these lungfuls of new, fresh air. And also for Gemini, I think it's quite interesting, you know, that this is a very nice angle that Pluto is going to be for you for the next gazillion years. You know, bringing you kind of ideas, travel, transformative teachers, or, you know, it's a really nice angle. And you may again begin to feel that. It may be that you start some kind of course that's incredibly exciting for you, or move to another country that's amazing and opens your eyes. You know, there's stuff that's happening. So for Geminis, really look at the big picture, you know. Go think big, think wide. And I would say also for Taurians, by the way, back to the Taurus having this on the midheaven, think big, you know, go for the huge job, go for the job for the huge person, and think about how this new power that's coming in, how you're going to wield it. Same with Aquarians. Think big at this point and at this new moon. And also, although we're talking about these months and this period as quite busy, fast, because everything's moving direct, don't get the bums right. You know, you don't have to be rushed into things, because this is an unfolding situation. It's a flowering, it's a blossoming.
Yeah, don't be rushed into things. But if you want to rush into things yourself, do it, I think, this month. There's a sense of being able to, you know, throw off the shackles and actually leap into something new. And that's, both lunations are kind of emphasizing that with Jupiter and Uranus for me. They're both emphasizing that. And this real, significant shift of Pluto again, bringing something dramatic and huge, as you say. I mean, I think huge is epic, maybe even, as we really feel this sort of transitional phase, almost from one life to the next. Pluto, again, going back to the Scorpio theme, it's often the survivor and often go through complete changes of life, complete chapters, different chapters in life. So it's a big, exciting month coming up. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to what arises.
Yeah, I am too. I'm looking forward to 2024, actually. It's a year of massive change and transformation. And it really it's begun already in January, and it's just accelerates into February. And actually, we need some change and transformation. And that Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in April, like all astrology, there's a bad, good and bad side to it. But, we're feeling it now, and we'll feel it through this month coming up, because all of those planets will aspect first Jupiter and then Uranus. So they're connecting the two, all the planets in Capricorn. And then they'll start doing it again from Aquarius. So they do a beautiful, smooth trine and then dynamic square. It's like boom, boom, this conjunction is a conjunction that magnifies change, right? So it can be good or it can be bad. I mean, there's bound to be probably earthquakes and stuff like that, I think, because of it's in earthy Taurus, right? But there's also going to be earthquakes in our own lives that might be necessary. We need upheaval. We need change. We need the doors being flung open, and they're being flung open right from the start of this year. Well, I guess that wraps up the month, Sally. Unless you have anything desperate that you desperately need to add.
I don't think so. I think we've said quite a lot. There's definite feel of excitement going on. So yeah, thank you everybody for listening in, and we look forward to talking with you again. We'll be back next month with Pisces season, but don't forget our little Astrology Talk Investigate. I think the next one's on retrograde planets and what they mean in the birth chart. So see you again soon. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye.